Hey Mona, man. How's everybody out there, man? And I'm back, man, once again. Like I told you, man, I'll be updating you with more videos, more truth, man, about everything. But this time I'm gonna get into the truth about your birth certificate real quick, man. Later on in this series, I'm gonna expose the college conspiracy. I'm gonna expose a lot of fraud that's been going on with colleges. But for now, we're gonna do your birth certificate. The birth certificate is probably the most important document used in society right now besides an ID. And I'm going to tell you why. Right? In 1921, right, something called the Shepherd-Towner Maternity Act was created. Right? And this was known as the Maternity Act. And it was the Congress sold it to the American people as a law that said was going to protect the health of mothers and infants and children. But really what this did is it created something called parens patriae, that is Latin for government as parents. So truthfully, your children is owned by the American federal government, right? Now, you won't believe this, but before 1921, there was no birth certificates. You might want to ask yourself, why were birth certificates created after 1921 then? I'm going to tell you why, man. The truth is that, international bankers who own the Federal Reserve were preparing for a collapse of the United States government. Now, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. It was a central bank. The Federal Reserve, what it did was it printed the United States money because the Treasury was suspended de jure. And you all understand this later on in the video, but for now I'm just going to make it real simple, right? Now, when the United States was taken off a gold standard in 1913, it was also taken off a silver standard way before then in 1873, So when it was taken off a gold standard, America was bankrupt. So what it did was it pledged its citizens as collateral based on the Birth Certificate Maternity Act. So each citizen technically became chattel, slaves. Your birth certificate is traded on the stock market. If you look at your birth certificate, it should have red numbers on it. Red numbers because these numbers are called CUSIP numbers. A CUSIP number is a number used for a bond or a certificate that is traded on the stock market. Now, man, I'm gonna get a little further deep into this this whole corrupt system we call the United States, right? You may ask yourself, who is running the United States? And what is the United States? Well, it's two different things, right? The United States is a corporation. America is a landmass. America is a geographical landmass. The United States is a corporation. And the reason why the United States is a corporation is because in 1871 for District of Columbia is basically the founding of the United States Corporation. You might say, what's the difference between District of Columbia and the United States? Like I told you before, District of Columbia is in the United States. The main goal of these founders, George Washington and a lot of other Freemasons, Adam Weishaupt, Albert Pike, Cecil Rhodes, J.P. Morgan, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, their main goal is for control. They want to control. Secondly, if you look into the United Nations, you'll see that they had many different names before they were the United Nations. League of Nations. They had two other names I can't frankly remember now, but the United Nations was founded by Rockefeller. The oil guy. The guy who controls the oil. You learned about it in history class. You probably didn't because, you really don't really pay attention now these days. Nobody really cares. So, yeah, man, you're not free. There's two types of constitutions. The constitution we're now under is called a Lex Fori constitution. Lex Fori was a Roman word when Caesar governed. When he governed with his commerce, he used to sit on something called Capitol Hill. We have a place called Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. now. But let's not talk about that. Anyway, two types of constitution. You have organic constitution and a de jure constitution, no, a de facto constitution. These two are very different. The first constitution said this is for the government for the United States. The second one was of the United States. Now, anytime you put of in something, it's denoting corporate ownership. Like, if you I live in the state of Virginia as a corporate entity. As a person, I live in the state of Virginia. But as a free man, I live in Virginia State. Virginia State is a landmass. The state of Virginia is a municipal corporation. You know, that's the two different things about it, you know. And you know, these common usage words has been screwed and manipulated to a point where when you go into court or when you pay taxes or pay anything, or when you get a credit card or when you have a zip code or whatever, you know, it gives the federal government jurisdiction over your human body. When you consent, when you give the government consensual obligations for control, they have control. And you know, the longer you continue to let them control you, the longer it's going to be like this, you know. I'm not saying pick up guns and go crazy, but what I'm saying is educate yourself, inform others, and let's wake up from this sleep, man. Because everybody's sleeping. Everybody is asleep. Nobody wants to care. Let's watch TV. Let's watch the funny show. Let's go out and buy more stupid shit. Let's go out and go get drunk. Let's go out and party. You know, that's what the college system is. No one learning shit. The college system is basically an infrastructure of mass brainwashing and partying. I haven't met anyone in college that knows anything about Nikola Tesla. I haven't met anyone in college that knows anything about the District of Columbia Act or sovereignty or your straw man or anything. You know, people ain't learning shit. And we vote for presidents and they keep outsourcing jobs to India. And they keep putting their money in offshore banks. Come on, man. Why do you vote for these? Why do you trust these people? Why? Stop voting, man. You know, it's as simple as that, man. If you don't like what I say, man, it's cool, but you know, I'm gonna post the facts below and the links. I'm probably gonna say that twice because I always do. No one ever looks at them though. But for my supporters, man, you know, y'all know the truth, man. Maybe with law, you know you must take something called the bar exam. The bar exam stands for British Attorney Registration. And you might say, why is it British? It's British because the British corporation is something called the Mother Corporation. You need to Google that anyway. The Mother Corporation was founded because in 1606, King James had something called the Virginia Charter. The Virginia Charter sold the United States to the Great Britain, to the Queen. There's also something called the Treaty of Paris, 1789. Yeah, this sold the United States to Great Britain also. There's many legislative documents that prove the United States is a corporation. But you want to talk about some pledge allegiance and all that shit. Wake the fuck up, man. Wake up, man. One more thing about the whole situation is this. The IRS is not a government agency. The IRS is like the Federal Reserve. It's a private corporation. You might say, who owns this? Who owns these corporations? Who owns this? Well, that's a great question because if you don't know, you need to be saying, what about the Emancipation Proclamation? What about the slaves that were freed in 1865? Well, the slave wasn't freed later on until 1879. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't free slaves in Washington, D.C. It didn't free slaves everywhere. So the Emancipation Proclamation wasn't even a constitutional amendment. It was a legislative act. Acts, laws, and statutes and codes are not the same. They call it an act because it's what it is. It's an act. When you go before a judge, did you know he is acting as a legal, executive, judicial administrator? He's acting. He has on a robe and a wig. It's a play. Because the first lawyers were called the Great Britain Lawyers Guild. You know what a guild is? Like an acting guild? You know? When you get stopped by the sheriff, he has on a suit. It's a play. He's dressing up for his part in the play. When you attend meetings, legislative meetings, you're dressed as a citizen. You play the part of a citizen. Everybody involved in the United States capitalistic society is playing a game. They're in a play right now. And you look at all these Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Loon Co., all these bankers, the Federal Reserve Cartel. You look at all these. Why they never go to prison for? Why do you go to prison for? You know the money you have isn't even real. It's not even worth the paper it's printed on. You know? And you want to talk about some vote for Mitt Romney, vote for Obama. It don't matter who you vote for, man. The Federal Reserve always wins. It don't matter who you vote for. You can vote for Jesus, man. As long as the Federal Reserve hit, it's gonna be a small group of people controlling your life. You gotta wake up before it's too late, man. Gotta wake up before it's too late, man. Straight up, man. Any questions about what I said or anything? I got links at the bottom of the video to prove everything I said. If you want to get free, man, what you need to do is legally free yourself first. Acceptance for value, UCC1 forms. The list goes on, man, of legal ways you can free yourself. You need to gain your sovereignty back. Truth affidavit, get one of those. You know, you don't need a driver's license. You don't need an ID. Driver's license are for drivers. There's rules against driving, but you can't show me one rule against traveling. It's illegal to travel. It's illegal to drive without a driver's license. Stop letting these people out of you, man. Stop voting. Stop paying taxes, man. Stop working. Wake up, man. Go enjoy life.
Guys, I'm sorry. I thought I was on. So what I was saying was, would you believe me if I told you that the video was 11 years old? 11 whole years ago. And the young man in the video was very wise because you could look at him and tell that he was young, but he knew this 11 whole years ago. We are still talking about the same thing because so many people are starting to wake up to this. It's never too late for you to find this information. That's my point. So the fact that you are here watching this video 11 years present is a wonderful thing because we are starting to see the truth. So I'm just going to elaborate some of the things that he talked about in that video in this presentation. And I'm going to break down the truth about the birth certificate in this presentation. So the title is The Fed Owns You and Your Children. The truth about the birth certificate. We're going to get straight into it. Disclaimer, I am not the creator of this information. I do not own it in any way. I am a private woman who has studied law, statutes, codes, and the truth about the United States. I am not a lawyer, legal aid, or attorney. This is not legal advice, but this is lawful advice. I suggest you fact check everything I present in this presentation because confidence comes with knowledge, and the more you know, the more you grow. Before I begin, please smash the like button to help this video get out to more people. Liking this video is showing your appreciation for my consistency and dedication to sharing this information. So if you're unable to send in donations or join my private community, you liking this video or sharing this video, commenting, engaging in some way will be your thank you to what I'm doing because we have to wake up more people. So share this to those who have ears to hear and ears to hear, yes, and eyes to see. I'm sorry. So let's get straight into it. All right, so you don't own yourself. The Federal Reserve does. Now, this is what I want everybody to do. You don't have to do it right now, but I want you to do this at some point. I want you to take a look at your birth certificate. And you will notice that it's not the original, but a copy of the original. Who has the original? Your copy of your birth certificate has serial numbers on it and is on bond paper. Why are our birth certificates printed on bond paper? Only bonds, negotiable instruments, bills of exchange, and checks are printed on this type of paper. Still think there's a coincidence, or are you starting to question the weird circumstances associated with our certificates of live birth? Because a lot of people are still asleep, and I do realize this information is not for everybody, and everybody is not going to wake up. And I also understand that this knowledge is going to be scary to those who are agents of the system. The system was created so that it could work on its own. So they don't even have to enforce it anymore. It has been imprinted on the minds of the population where they just pass it down. It's just like tradition. They pass it down. The government doesn't even have to do as much work as they had to when they started this, because they have done so good with their systems that it has people doing it for them, basically. All right, so everything that I'm saying is not something that I'm just picking up out of thin air. This is actual facts. And if you choose that in your mind, this does not exist or this is not real, then you can find your exit now. Don't bother to leave a comment. You will be blocked. I don't have time for ignorant people who choose to stay asleep. The system was created for you to be asleep. And if that's what you want to be, then go back to your job and live that happy American dream that you think is a reality. Okay? If you are a person who knows that something is wrong and you're questioning the reality that you thought you knew, then stay tuned to this video and take notes. Do whatever it is that you have to do, because I want you guys to know the history that they lied to us or hid from us in their school system. This is not history that they put in the books for us to know. The history that they put in the books for us to know was a whole bunch of lies and nonsense to brainwash us, to never know that the reality of it is that we are the surety for the United States corporation. Okay? So here's what happened. In 1913, the United States was short of cash. By the end of World War I, wartime costs had depleted the treasury, and there were several severe financial panics. The country needed to print more money than it had as equity to restore confidence in the money supply and get the economy back on its feet. When you or I need more money, we use something as collateral, which is ourselves most of the time, our signatures, right? And our social security numbers that go to our estates, which are our CQV trusts that were set up in our name. And we go to the bank for a loan with that collateral. When a country needs more money, it has to go somewhere also. But in 1913, there wasn't anywhere to go. So the United States created the Federal Reserve Act. This established a private central bank, which is the Federal Reserve Bank, that will regulate the amount of money the United States was allowed to borrow and put in circulation. It also was expected to be repaid like any bank with interest. That is the usury system that was brought over here from Britain by the criminal bankers who ran from Britain because they were facing death for committing usury. So they came over here to repay their debts, and they had to figure out a way. And they knew that their cousins, because they're all related, they knew their cousins who had just established the United States in 1777 or 76. Yes, in 1776, they knew that they needed help. So what better way to create another usury system where they wouldn't get in trouble and they would be able to repay their debt and avoid being put to death, to go to their cousins and say, I can help you with your problem. I'm going to create something where you can borrow money from us, but we just need the interest. Right? But how? The United States was bankrupt and had nowhere to turn to get the funds. So again, their cousins who were committing usury in Britain, who had got caught by the Queen, were facing death, but come up with this brilliant plan because they knew their cousins overseas in United States, well, in America, who created the United States Corporation, they knew they were struggling. So they had a clever idea to run over here, create this Federal Reserve Bank that would allow the United States government to borrow money from them with interest. And by their cousins being desperate, they said, okay, let's do this. So what happened next? After only 20 years, things went from bad to worse. During Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency in 1933, the United States was unable to pay its debt. The country was bankrupt. That's a typo, my bad. The private banks that made up the Federal Reserve demanded their monies, and Roosevelt responded. He had to use the only thing left of any value to pay the banks and continue doing business with them, and that is the citizens of this supposed country. Now their cousins that are here in the United States, who in America, who created the United States Corporation, they were super desperate at this point, because that loan that they took from their cousins, who were the bankers from Great Britain, who were tried for usury, the loan that they took from them, they were unable to repay. So this is where the Great Depression came in, because the country had lost everything and they really had they had no other way to go. So they thought of this brilliant plan to make us the surety to repay the debt. This is when the school systems and stuff started being actually like more pushed for the common folks to go to school, because the school system was not created for the common folks. It was only created for the male members of the 13 colony families, only for them to gain the secret knowledge that they can stay in control when they were over here in our territory. So they came up with an idea that would allow us to be tied into that debt. Okay? And that debt is the that paper called the birth certificate that ties us into the debt is how they did it. By creating trust accounts in our name called Sesta KV Trust, because everybody born in America under the United States Corporation that has a birth certificate that was registered after their birth, 9 days after their birth, if your parents didn't go and pick up your birth certificate, you were labeled a stillborn. So the hospital then transferred that birth certificate or record of birth, because that's what it is, the record of birth. They transferred it to the registrar, in which it then became a birth certificate. That is when the trust was created. So when you look on your birth certificate, you will see 2 dates. You will see the date that they say you were born, and you will see the file date. The file date is the date that that corporation was born. That is the date that you were registered into the system as surety to repay the country's debt. But it's not the country's debt, it's the corporation's debt, because the United States is not a country, it is a corporation. America is a country. Okay? So the intricacies on how this was orchestrated is far too much to share during this presentation. I already gave you a lot of it, but it goes so deep. And that's why I say it's very important for you to know the true history of how the United States was incorporated and how the United States created this whole mess that we are currently in. However, the original birth or naturalization record for every individual living in America is on file in the official records in Washington, D.C., and you only get to keep a copy. So that is who actually holds the original document of your birth. It's on file in Washington, D.C. with the Treasury. And that is labeled the warehouse receipt. That's your copy. You get the warehouse receipt. And the property and assets of every living United States citizen is pledged as collateral for the national debt. So they are literally banking on our labor and ignorance. What took place? Within 2 weeks and 3 days, each certificate of live birth is to be filed in Washington, D.C. Evidence reveals that there is even a federal children department established by the Shepard-Townsend Act of 1922 under the Department of Commerce that appears to be involved in this process in some way. Every citizen is given a number. That's the red number on the birth certificate. That is the number that I was telling you. That's a serial number. And each live birth is valued at from $650,000 to $750,000. Federal Reserve dollars in collateral from the Fed. Just like cattle, we are given a number that allows them to track us. The Social Security number makes us obligated to repay debts that are already covered by our collateral, which is us and our labor, as known as sweat equity. Okay? Now, let's check the birth certificate. And this is a sample birth certificate for you to just look over. But again, I want you guys to go and look at your own. This kind of makes you feel a little different when you look at Federal Reserve Chairman Janet Yellen, doesn't it? let's take a pause to look at the birth certificates. You will see the red numbers and you will see the fact that it is, in reality, a banknote. Congratulations, you and I are commodities, literally. Also, you will see here where it says copy. I certify that this is a true and correct copy of a certificate or document registered with the Vital Records Registry of the state of wherever you were born, pursuant to LSA, whatever. So on yours, you'll have something that says that as well. But this number, that number in red, and the date that is in red, or sometimes it's in black, but most likely it's in red. Remember what I said the color red stands for. It stands for living. So they're letting you know that a living being is connected to this document. And here's the serial number for that living being. This is why when you go to get a loan or a car, whatever it is that you're trying to get, they ask you for two things. And these are very important on an application. Your social security number, which is going to make you obligated as debtor to repay the debt that has already been taken when you gave them the signature on your application and that number. And just from you having a birth certificate and having a CQV trust with funds that are already put in and established for you, it actually flips the responsibility from them to you when you use that social security number to obtain anything. And then you have to repay it with interest. And that's how they make their money. Okay? Your signature is as good as gold. I always say that. Names in all caps on birth certificates. Since the early 1960s, state governments have issued birth certificates to persons with legal fictional names using all caps names. Now, we already know that the legal definition to persons is a corporation or a dead fiction. Okay? This is not a lawful record of your physical birth, but rather the acknowledgement of the birth of the juristic all caps name, letting them know that this artificial corporation that we created is now registered to be used as surety for the debt of the United States corporation. Okay? We're supposed to be the beneficiaries, but with us under all their contracts, we are actually the trustees and they are the beneficiaries. And the trustee's job is to do things that benefit the beneficiary. The beneficiary is supposed to be the people of the nation. But because we put ourselves under contracts as United States citizens, which we are not, we have switched roles. So now they are the beneficiaries and we are the trustees and we're making decisions to benefit the corporations. This is why minimum wage will never match the cost of living. This is why the corporations will always be on top and never have to really, they're never going to be took to court. They're never going to be held accountable. And when they have lawsuits, it really doesn't hurt them. Okay? It may appear to be your true name, but since no proper name is ever written in all caps, either lawfully or grammatically, it does not identify who you are. The birth certificate is the government's self-created document of title for its new property, you and me. In a way, it makes us a kind of corporation whose company name is the same as our real name, but written in all caps. This corporation then generates taxes and wealth over its lifetime, and in this way repays the collateral that Uncle Sam, which is the IRS, borrowed from the Federal Reserve. Remember that bond thing printed on the bottom of the certificate? Let me give y'all the definition. Bond, the first definition, 1A, a usually formal written agreement by which a person undertakes to perform a certain act as fulfilled the obligations of a contract, with the condition that failure to perform or abstain will obligate the person to pay a sum of money or will result in the forfeiture of money put up by the person or surety. 1B, one who acts as a surety. 2, an interest-bearing document giving evidence of a debt issued by a government body or corporation that is sometimes secured by a lien or property and is often designated to take care of a particular financial need. And this is from Merriam-Webster Dictionary of Law, 1996. So they're literally telling you that we are the surety. This is why they created those bonds, birth certificates. Okay. Now, you guys, I'm pretty sure already know that the birth is the same way that they say the birth of the ship. When you come out of your mother's waters, birth when a ship comes off the sea to dock. Our birth is spelled B-I-R-T-H. The birth of a ship coming in is B-E-R-T-H. It's a play on words. But they are likening you to a vessel. And your vessel, inside of it, which is what is truly you, is the real commodity. So if they can get you, the true you, to act as the vessel, the outside of you, if they can get you to contract as that, then you will be the true surety for that fiction that they created in your name. And the definition of banknote: a kind of negotiable instrument, a promissory note made by a bank payable to the bearer or in demand, used as money, and in many jurisdictions is legal tender. Along with coins, banknotes make up the cash or bearing forms of all modern money. So those little phony little dollars or United States money that we think holds value, it's a promissory note. It is a banknote. It does not hold value outside of the fact that we create it by working so that they can keep printing it and making us believe that that is actual money. And it's not. It holds no value. It is backed by nothing but our work, our labor. Birth certificates are a form of securities called warehouse receipts. The items included on a warehouse receipt as described at Section 7-202 of the Uniform Commercial Code, the law which governs commercial paper and transactions which parallel a birth certificate, are the location of the warehouse where the goods are stored, which is your residence, the date of issue of the receipt, which is the date issued, the consecutive number of the receipt found on back or front of the certificate, usually in red numbers, a description of the goods or of the packages containing them, which is your name, sex, date of birth, etc. The signature of the warehouse man, which may be made by his authorized agent, which is the municipal clerk or the state registrar's signature. It will always be on, all of these things will always be on your birth certificate, which lets you know that you get a copy of the warehouse receipt. Birth certificates now appear to at least qualify as warehouse receipts under the Uniform Commercial Code. Black's Law Dictionary, 7th edition, defines warehouse receipt: a warehouse receipt which is considered a document of title, may be a negotiable instrument, and is often used for financing with inventory as security. We are the inventory. It is not difficult to see that a state-created birth certificate with an all-caps name is a document evidencing debt the moment it is issued. Okay? Once a state has registered a birth document with the United States Department of Commerce, the department notifies the Treasury Department, which takes out a loan from the Federal Reserve, which is the $650,000 to $750,000 per person born. The Treasury uses the loan to purchase a bond. The Fed holds a purchase money security interest in the bond from the Department of Commerce, which invests the sale proceeds in the stock or bond market. The Treasury Department then issues Treasury securities in the form of Treasury bonds, notes, and bills, using the bonds as surety for the new securities. Because as much as every time somebody's born, they go and get this loan from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve then gives the Department of Treasury the permission to print that much in money, in United States dollars. And then we, not knowing, act as that all caps name, paying all of our debts as we grow, getting involved with the IRS, paying taxes, and we are paying the United States Treasury back through the Federal Reserve's baby, which is the IRS, which is then taking what we give them and securitizing it to settle the debt. This cycle is based on the future tax revenues of the legal person whose name appears on the birth certificate. This also means that the bankrupt corporate United States can guarantee to the purchasers of their securities the lifetime labor and tax revenues of every citizen of the United States of American with a birth certificate as collateral for payment. That's literally what it is. It's them loaning money using us as collateral. This device is initiated simply by converting the lawful true name of the child into a legal juristic name of a person, which is a dead fictional entity. Legally, you are considered to be a slave or indentured servant to the various federal, state, and local governments via your state issued and state created birth certificate in the name of your all caps person. Birth certificates are issued so that the issuer can claim exclusive title to the legal person created thereby. So, no matter what you look like, no matter what the color of your skin is, in this paper slavery system, you are a black slave. In law, that means you are civilly dead. In admiralty maritime jurisdiction, that means you are lost or dead at sea. You are common stock, cattle, a slave. You mean nothing to the system, no matter if you believe you have more benefits or privileges because you classify as another color, which color only exists in law. So if you think that you're white and you think that you have more benefits and privileges, it doesn't matter. You're still considered a black slave when it comes to having a birth certificate. You are still a black slave in law. They will continue to work you until you are dead, and when you die, they will take whatever is left in your CQV and transfer it to the British Crown. We mean nothing to them, but we continue to fight over topics that they created for us to keep us divided. Remember the saying, united we stand, divided we fall? When will that click in our heads to make us realize they have been dividing us the entire time? They divide us through media. They divide us through the school system. They divide us through the history that they give us. They divide us through these movements like the civil rights movement to make us think that there's a difference between living, breathing humans that are all here to survive and to live and to thrive. So we're looking at ourselves as colors like we're in a crayon box because they have programmed us to look at ourselves that way so that they don't have to do it anymore. We're doing it to ourselves. We're going into these places and getting loans and checking yes to United States citizens. So we're opting into being taxpayers because they taught us that way. We're looking at one another and saying, you're black, you're white, I don't like you. You enslaved my people, because they taught us that history in school. But has anybody ever asked, why is it that they know all of this, but there's no slave ships to ever be found? And the history that they've been telling us is actually backward. They came here. We were already here. Okay? We can put our differences aside for entertainment, but we can't do it to put an end to this corruption and tyranny. We must do better. We are all on the same playing field, but from opposite experiences. So no matter if you call yourself white, you call yourself black, you are on the same playing field, which is at the bottom of the pyramid. This is why they show us that pyramid. They show us the food groups. They show it to us as a pyramid. They're showing us where we stand. They have the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill with the capstone missing to show you where you stand. The capstone is an eye, letting you know that you're being watched all the time. So when we decide that this game is over, then it'll actually be over, because they're playing with all of us. Everything that they told us and taught us is a game. It is an act. We are acting in commerce, but we're acting in commerce incorrectly because we are in joinder with the all caps name, thinking that that is us. So when we get bills in the mail, we get summons in the mail from courts. We think that those summons, we get letters from the IRS. We think that that is written to us. That's not written to us. That's written to the juristic person that they created. We don't owe that debt. That has nothing to do with us. So we must come out of those contracts. We must cancel and revoke all of the contracts that we put ourselves in so that we no longer will be acting incorrectly, because we are not that corporation. We are not surety to the debt that they created. We have nothing to do with them repaying that debt. We did not create it. We are not obligated to repay it. The only way that we are obligated is with our consent, whether it be informed or implied. Informed consent is them telling you what they're about to do before they do it. Implied consent is them doing something and you saying nothing, and they just imply that it is okay because you didn't say anything. That's acquiescence, silent acquiescence. So I hope this information has, triggered you to begin to want to look into this and to learn it, because this information is freely available all over the internet. You just have to start looking for it. When the student is ready, the teacher shall appear. And I want you guys to know that I go live every Wednesday on YouTube at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Central, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to be notified when I go live. The more you engage, the more I will share to help others break free from the matrix. Share this video with somebody that you feel like needs to know this. Open someone's mind. That's the least that you can do, because the more of us that knows this and start to look into this and start to actually take action, the system is crumbling with every person that is waking up. So let's put a stop to this tyranny and corruption, and let's stand for truth. No matter what you believe the color of your skin is, put those differences aside, just like you would if you were at a football game sitting next to someone that looks different than you. Do it the same way you would stand in a crowd in a concert in a mosh pit. The same thing that you can do for that, let's do it for something that actually means something. If you like how I teach and want to learn more from me, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/divinetrustbabies. Or if you're interested in joining the status correction course to correct your status by canceling out contracts and revoking your election to pay taxes, you can do so at divine-trust-babies.trainercentralsite.com/course/divine-trust-babies-academy. Or if you're interested in becoming a private banker and learning how to file the forms needed with the IRS and act privately so that you will no longer be a public actor in commerce, which is obligated to pay debt, then you can do that at divine-trust-babies.trainercentralsite.com/course/foreign-creation-debt-discharge. Again, like I said, I'm going to try to find a way to shorten these URLs, but for now, this is what you get. And if you want to access any of my past study sessions, you can sign up at divine-trust-babies.trainercentralsite.com/course/study-sessions-replays. Or if you're one of those persons who like to work independently and want to just purchase content and courses, you can do so at linktr.ee.com/divinetrustbabies. And I want to let you know, before you try to go to any of these links and join anything, do not join if you aren't willing to learn. I'm not going to just give you the information and you don't know what to do with it. You have to take time to learn this. You need to unlearn and relearn. You need to change your mind. I don't want you in my group if you're desperate to repay debts. Even though that's what you'll be learning how to do, I don't want you in my group if that's all you want out of this. I only want people who want to put an end to the system, learn this, finish and do this for themselves, and then go teach others to do this. If that is not you, do not bother. You must learn the history before beginning this process, because we have been lied to on every scale imaginable. And I want to say thank you for watching. I will see you guys next week.